Okay, here's a remarkable thing. This is a Jewish home program starting on time. Something is wrong here. Something is definitely wrong here, but we're excited about that. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Carol Silverelli, and I'm President and CEO of the Jewish Home Family. And as you know, we have been on this journey to improve care for individuals with Parkinson's for about 2 years at this point. It started, as I think many of you know, from an innocent comment by one of our family members at Rockley who said, "Why is it that your staff talk to my husband as if he has dementia when what he really has is Parkinson's disease?" And that was a moment that was very eye-opening for those of us in leadership, and we said, you know what? We have a significant population of individuals who have a diagnosis of Parkinson's, and what are we doing? So we started with training our staff. We trained about 350 members of our team, and we began to develop, with the help of our medical director and a local neurologist, clinical protocols. And then we started adding therapeutic interventions, and some of the staff here from Recreation probably remember that better than anybody, because we were like throwing things at the wall. Well, we heard about Tai Chi, so we all got trained in Tai Chi, and then we started to do yoga, and you know, if you said it, it was an idea. And I will never forget that Sonny and I were on the phone with a facility in central New York, and we were picking their brains. They were referred to us by the Fox Foundation. We're picking their brains about what they're doing. And they said to us, we have to keep adding space for rock steady boxing. Neither of us had ever heard of rock steady boxing. So we're sitting, she's across my desk, and I'm Googling, what is rock steady boxing? We didn't want to look ignorant. So within probably 10 minutes of that conversation, we had signed our first group of coaches up to participate in rock steady boxing, and we have not looked back. We are thrilled today that we are really officially launching our first, you know what I said first, satellite program at the Kaplan JCC on the Palisades. If you can join us tonight at 6:30 for a little celebration, we would be delighted to have you. And to really make this a special day, we've invited 2 of the key people from Rock Steady Boxing to come and share some of their insights with you. I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little more fully, but we have Kristy Rose Follmar and Christine, I'm going to get her wrong, Timberlake, right? Okay, I was working on that all the way over, but I didn't have it written down about either I'm rehearsing this right or wrong. And they're going to talk to you a little bit about this program, about where it came from, about their beginnings with it, and really give you some insights into rock steady boxing. I see a lot of our boxers here, which is awesome, and I know we're going to have an incredible hour together. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Carol, Tom, all the coaches here that we recognize. A lot of these coaches actually came to Indianapolis 2 years ago, so it's a little reunion for us. And we're just so grateful to be here and so proud of what you guys have done. And as Carol said, we're gonna introduce ourselves a little bit. And today, I think what we really want to do is just share with you some of the history of rock steady boxing and how we got started and why does this crazy thing exist in the first place. Talk about some research and things like that. But we do think it's important also to kind of talk about our backgrounds a little bit and how we got involved. So, as Carol said, I'm Kristy Rose Follmar, and I'm technically one of the founders of Rocksteady. We've been doing Rocksteady Boxing since 2006, so we're going on our 13th year, which is very exciting. And this is literally a dream come true for us because when we started Rocksteady Boxing, it was one gym in Indianapolis, a very small space, about half of this room size. The media grabbed a hold of it because it's kind of counterintuitive. It's interesting. People with Parkinson's boxing. The media grabbed a hold of it, and we started to get some really neat local press. And when that happened, the phone started ringing, and people were calling from all over the world, literally, assuming that they were just Rocksteady Boxings in New Jersey or Rocksteady Boxings in Norway. And unless you lived in Indianapolis, it was very heartbreaking for us to say, we don't have a DVD for you. We don't have any other programs besides this program. So fast forwarding 13 years later to see programs like this popping up in multiple communities is just amazing because people are getting the help that they need, and we're so grateful for the folks. You guys have an awesome team here. My background, I literally didn't know anything. I didn't have anybody in my family with Parkinson's disease when I was approached by the founder to do this. My connection to Rocksteady Boxing is that I had a boxing career. I started boxing as a teenager. was always an athlete. We're both certified personal trainers now, and both have deep roots as athletes. My dad was an athlete and a big fan of boxing, big fan of wrestling, and so I kind of grew up as a tomboy thinking that boxing is just really cool. And I feel that my personal connection and major drive to Rocksteady is the emotional connection that I have to boxing. Because when I was 13 years old, my father, who was my hero, made a bad decision and committed suicide. And as a 13-year-old girl, that was very difficult for me. And my mother had the intuition to buy me a heavy bag and hung up a heavy bag in the garage and said, when you're upset about your father, go out and hit that heavy bag and do what your dad taught you. And that's what I did. And it was very therapeutic for me. And to this day, we see a lot of emotion in our gym. You know, people that are going through a tragedy in their life, their perceived expectations of their health has changed. And they're hitting these heavy bags and they're doing the things that fighters do, and it's helping people feel better, not just physically, but emotionally. And I can really see that in people. And we're going to talk a little bit more after Christine's intro about the actual founder of Rocksteady Boxing, because he's got a really neat story. But I just want to say thank you guys for letting us come here and talk to you about this organization, and we got a lot to get through today. Take it away, Coach Kristy Timberlake. Thanks, Kristy.
So what she neglected to tell you was she's a 3-time world champion boxer. So,
Long time ago.
First of all, I am so blown away by what's happened here. Since a conversation I had with a gentleman who came to training camp about 2 years ago. His name was Tom Elliott. And he said, he walked around the gym and he was fully present in training camp, which is a 2.5-day total immersion. It's 25 hours, exhausting. I could tell that he was soaking it all in. And at the end of training camp, he came up to me and he said, I've got big plans for this thing. And with the gravity, I'm sorry, I get upset. I'm just gonna throw it out there. This is emotional for me. And that's why this thing is so beautiful, because the heart is on the surface. And what Tom said to me, I believed him, but I had no idea how fast this was gonna happen. 2 years ago, right, Tom? Since a conversation.
No, less than that, but
Less than that, okay. But like Kristy said, this is a dream come true. You guys have the dream team. Your coaches that they've selected. Not everyone can do this work. It's work of the heart. Carol, Tom, Lauren, all the staff that we've met today, we really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to present to you guys today. It is truly our privilege and our honor. My involvement in Rocksteady began 13 years ago when, my husband was diagnosed 20 years ago with Parkinson's. He was 36. We had the sweet life. You know, we had no idea disability was gonna come into our life at that point. That's the prime of your life for some people. And we thought we had it all figured out. But life had different plans. So what we did, because back in the dark ages, as I will call it, 20 years ago, it was simply throw medication at Parkinson's and go home and be comfortable. But thank God, that's different today. Because he found Rocksteady 6 years later. And he told me one day, he came home and he goes, this girl is kicking my butt. And I was curious, I'm like, who is this girl? So, grudgingly, because I am the last person you would expect to see in a boxing gym. I have a formal art degree, fine arts. I'm a custom jewelry designer. I wear suits and pearls and high heels every day. And my hands are my instruments. So boxing gym did not appeal to me. But I walked in, this is where I lose it. I walked into this place, no bigger than the room you guys have upstairs. It was tiny, 5 people in this little tiny gym with one coach. That's how Rocksteady started. And I fell in love with the program, with the passion that exists. What I saw today is the exact same thing I saw 13 years ago. And it's what we see at every rock steady. 760 rock steadies now across the world. I know. About 40,000 people are being served through rock steady, so we have a lot of work to do with 6 or 7 million people around the world with Parkinson's. But what I want to say to all of you, people with Parkinson's, their spouses, their care partners, good job. You guys are rocking it here. Thank you for your heart. Keep fighting. All right?
The mission statement of Rocksteady Boxing is to empower people to fight back against Parkinson's disease. And it might not be the actual literary feeling of fighting back, hitting the bags. It's fighting back emotionally. It's fighting back by making new friendships, by expanding your livelihood. This gentleman right here, this is Mr. Scott Newman. This is the actual founder of Rocksteady Boxing, and he's just a brilliant man. I wish he could be here today to see this type of growth. He's alive and well. I just mean he's back in Indy working. Scott Newman was the Marion County prosecutor. He was the district attorney and elected official for Indianapolis at the time of his diagnosis. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's at the age of 39. Very young, and he was still in term as prosecutor. And when you're the prosecutor, having Parkinson's disease is pretty inconvenient. He was trying to hide his disease, and with his position, he was having to show up at these huge court cases, sometimes show up in front of the media to give testimony, and the disease was stripping him of his ability to do those types of things. He was starting to bend forward. His voice was getting softer. His signature changed. He was unable to write his own name. He eventually was not able to type on a computer and had to use voice-activated software, was isolating himself in his apartment, and it was becoming pretty obvious to everything that something was wrong with Scott. Scott is a huge sports enthusiast. He loves boxing, he loves racing, he loves basketball. And so his big idea was, if I have a disease that's going to strip me of my movement, maybe if I moved and exercised, it would have the reverse effect and make me feel better. And back then, this was 13 years ago, he told his doctor about this crazy idea, and his doctor said, that's a bad idea. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna trip, your balance is gonna get worse. You probably need to retire from your position and just take these medications and get yourself ready for end of life. Thank God he didn't listen. He had a very good friend who was also a lawyer, and his good friend was also a retired Golden Gloves boxer. He boxed a decade prior in the Army. And his friend said, well, if you want to start exercising, I'll be your trainer. Let me teach you how to box, because if you've never boxed before, I think this would be really good for you. It's big movements, it's all about balance, it's all about strength training and being loud and big amplitude. And so the two of them hung up a heavy bag in Scott's basement, and his friend started to teach him how to box. And within 4 to 6 weeks, Scott's life had transformed. He was standing up straighter, he was speaking louder, he regained his fine motor skills. He was able to come out with his Parkinson's disease to the public because he was doing something about it. He was proactive in his disease. He knew that if this was going to work for him, that it was probably going to help other people. And that's when I got involved. I got a random phone call from the Marion County prosecutor to have lunch one day. I thought it was in big trouble for something. We had a mutual friend, and he knew that I was a boxing trainer and also have a degree in marketing. So we went out to dinner, and he told me this crazy concept, and I thought, this is just genius. It makes sense. At the time, both of us were still learning about Parkinson's disease. We immersed ourselves in literature. We immersed ourselves in conferences. We aligned ourselves with Parkinson's organizations throughout the country to learn as much as we can, as much as we could about it. But as you know, if you've met one person with Parkinson's disease, you've met one person with Parkinson's disease. So when we started the gym, we only had 6 people, and we had just the one location, and it was in a very, very small facility. And we like to talk about the history of it because it was very humble beginnings. It was an experiment, and it worked. And we started with a very young onset style group. We had people that were about Scott's age, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, doing a very intense, rigorous workout with them. until the day that we had somebody come through the door in a wheelchair, and then walkers, and then people in their 80s and 90s and very late stage Parkinson's, and we thought, how are we going to modify these exercises to help these individuals? So over the last 13 years, involving the medical community, we are very proud to say that we are helping people at all different levels of Parkinson's disease and their care partners and their families. And we want to show a video from 2006. This was the very, very first video that was ever produced about Rocksteady Boxing. And then we're going to show you another video on the growth. So this video is called The Battle.
I was not that upset about it because I didn't know that much about Parkinson's, and I didn't know how deadly and debilitating that it was. And I started to read about it, and I found out, and I got very depressed. When I first met Scott, he was in horrible shape. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's half the guy he was now. I literally.
There's Kristy Rose. She's 23 years old. Cedar Lake on track.
Scott Newman called me out of the blue. He decided to get this program off the ground.
Sorry about the connection. It almost looks like the video had Parkinson's. That was a Parkinson's joke.
So from that little tiny gym, and let me paint a picture of that little gym. It was a free space because we had no money, and it was in the middle of a collection agency in a workout room where people used to walk through the gym to go smoke cigarettes. So there were people walking through our classes all day long, and then here we are today with facilities all over the world. So truly a dream come true for us.
We're going to show one more video. We wanted to just introduce what the Rocksteady headquarters gym in Indianapolis looks like today.
tell you what it's like. I mean, the doctor tells you two things, or at least he told me two things. Number one, this disease, there's no cure for it. And number two, it's degenerative. It gets worse as it goes on. You feel terrible today, and this is the best you're ever going to feel, and nobody can help you. If that doesn't make you feel alone, I don't know what does.
I was in the Air Force for 28 years, so I'm used to being in good physical condition, but I'm not used to having Parkinson's.
My husband was diagnosed 15 years ago with young onset Parkinson's at the age of 36. He read the literature that said, you know, you're pretty much going to be disabled in 6 to 10 years. So he just kind of went home and gave up. Six years later, he found Rocksteady through Scott Newman. And that's the day that his life changed.
The idea of boxing as a remedy for Parkinson's is a strange idea to begin with. A friend of mine who's a cop and he was a boxer, and he said, let's try this because it's what he knew how to do to get me moving. And that's how it started. There's tremendous power that I cannot describe to you when you realize what this does for people.
Balance, they have to work on hand-eye coordination, speed, optimal strength, focus, and these are all things that people with Parkinson's disease struggle with. Forward, step. We're giving them an opportunity to fight back amongst other people that understand what they're going through.
We're saying get strong, learn balance, learn how to get yourself up and down. Get down there and play with your grandkids. We don't want people to stop living. We want them to really embrace that they can do things, that they can live.
You've heard probably a lot of our boxers say how much more fun is it to tell your grandkids that you're going to boxing than to say you're